Well, welcome back everyone. This is Advanced Squad Leader Training. This is your host, ID Jester. And as you can see, I have numerous different vehicle counters on the map. So we are going to be talking about different kinds of vehicles and what all the different numbers and symbols represent on these counters. I would say a good 80 to 90% of the different scenarios have at least one, if not numerous, vehicle in the scenario. But unfortunately, when you add vehicles into a scenario, because of the different rules associated with them and all the different numbers and symbols, it can increase the complexity of that scenario. So hopefully, if you follow along with this video tutorial, I can explain what these numbers and symbols and colors represent. And if you have your second edition rulebook, you can follow along with me. When we're talking about vehicles, we're talking about Section D specifically. Section D is broken up into multiple different subsections. The first thing we want to talk about when we're talking about our vehicles is the different movement types. For land movement purposes, there are 5 types of vehicles, which are represented over here on the left-hand side. If you have your second edition rule book out and are following along, you will notice that the vehicles that I have positioned on the map represent the counters that they talk about throughout the different rules. When we're talking about movement types, there are 5 different, but as you can see, I actually only have 4. That is because in the Vassal module, for some reason, I was unable to find a motorcycle counter. A motorcycle counter is just a white counter with an overhead depiction of a motorcycle. When we're talking about what kind of type of unit this vehicle is, we're talking about the representation of the symbol in the top right-hand corner. There are 5 different ones. As I mentioned, we have motorcycles, which are special in that they're a plain white counter with just a motorcycle symbol. But more importantly, the other 4 are armored car. An armored car is represented by a single circle. A fully tracked vehicle is represented by a large oval circle. A large oval, I guess I should say. A half-track vehicle is a combination of these two in that it has got an oval and a circle. And last but not least, we have a truck which has 2 circles. So the 4 main different types of vehicles are armored cars, fully tracked vehicles, half-track vehicles, and trucks. The number associated with that symbol is the number of movement points that counter has to spend to move. Also, that number, whichever color it is, represents something different as well. If it's got a black number, it is just normal. If it actually has a red number as opposed to a black number, then this counter has to make a mechanical breakdown check whenever it starts up. If it doesn't have that, then you don't need to worry about it. The next thing we're going to talk about is the armor status for the vehicles, and that's represented by these 4 counters here. 1.2 armor status. Every vehicle falls into one of 4 armor status categories. The important thing to keep in mind is if a vehicle has any armor, it is referred to as an armored fighting vehicle, an AFV, and is subject to many special rules that AFVs get. The main advantage of an AFV is that it cannot be harmed by small arms fire on the infantry fire table unless it is struck through an unarmored target facing or aspect. So what does all that mean? That means if you attack a portion of the counter facing that has armor, your small arms attack will have no effect on it. If you attack a counter that doesn't have armor in that facing, then your small arms attack could have an effect against it. There are 4 classifications for your different armored types. Number 1 is unarmored. An unarmored vehicle is recognized by the presence of 2 star symbols. You can see on this counter we have 2 star symbols. So that would be an unarmored vehicle. The next classification would be a partially armored vehicle. That's this vehicle. And these are recognized by the presence of a star symbol again along the run hit margin and beneath its side or rear armor factors. So you can see here this counter has a star symbol and it also has a T. If there's a T there, it means that only the turret or upper superstructure aspect of the rear target facing is unarmored. Whenever I mention throughout this tutorial about turrets, it should be noted that I'm talking about turrets and any upper substructure for that vehicle. Because not all vehicles have turrets, but they might have an upper structure. So partially armored has a single star and might have a T, it might not have a T followed behind it. You know that not all aspects of this vehicle are armored. So it might be able to be attacked with small arms fire if somebody was to attack it where it did not have any armor. The next classification for armor is what they call open-topped, or OT, open-topped. An open-top vehicle is entire overhead depiction is printed on a white background. You can see that this vehicle here is black. This vehicle is kind of blackish in color. This one's mostly blackish in color. This one kind of stands out because it's mostly whitish in color. It's got a whitish background to it. That means it's open top. There's no top to the vehicle. And of course, most commonly, we have the final classification called closed top. A closed top vehicle does not have either a star or a white background. So if it does not have a star and it's not depicted with a white background along its right hand edge, then you know it's a closed top vehicle. Next thing we're going to talk about is the main armament for that vehicle, which is section 1.3. Each armed vehicle has one main armament inherent weapon, or MA, and this number is shown as a large number in the bottom left hand corner of the counter, so represented down here. When we're talking about main armaments, some things to keep in mind is there are different ways that main armament can be affected. The first way is 1.3.1, and we're talking about a fast turret traverse, which is just a plain T. Any main armament of the T type, which generally represents a 3-man turret, you can recognize by a thin white circle on the counter. So a thin white circle around the counter represents that this is a fast traverse vehicle. The next representation would be a slow traverse turret, or ST. And that's represented by a thin white square on the counter. So for example, this counter here, thin white square that goes around the counter. Sort of a subcategory to the slow traverse is restricted slow traverse. Some tanks have special arrangements such that the machine gun and the coaxial machine gun could not be used while the commander was CE or crew exposed. This main armament type is termed RST and is represented by a thick white square, which is this counter here, thick white square, and is considered a slow traverse vehicle, except for that it cannot fire its main armament nor its coaxial machine gun while its crew exposed. So if it's got a thin white square, it's slow traverse, and if it has a thick white square, then it's restricted slow traverse. It's still slow traverse, but there's some restrictions on what it can do and how it can do it. The next representation is this counter down here, and it's a one-man turret. It's recognized, this symbol, by a large, thick white square that is missing its corners. So it's got a thick square, but it's missing its corners. There's no white on the corners. So that is a one-man turret. The next classification is no turret whatsoever. If the main armament type has got no circle or square on it, that represents that it has no turret whatsoever. And lastly, but not least, we have a special secondary armament vehicle. Some counters have a SA, secondary armament, which is indicated on the counter in the same manner as the main armament, but it has a prefix of T or B, T meaning turret mounted or B meaning bow mounted, and it's represented above the main armament on the vehicle counter. So if it has other symbols or numbers represented here, it'll be followed by it'll be preceded by either B if it's bow mounted, or T if it's turret mounted. So that covers our different turret aspects. We have fast turret, slow turret, restricted, slow turret, a one-man turret, non-turreted at all, and secondary armaments. Next thing we're going to talk about is the armor factors. The armor factors. Okay, we found out a little bit about what kind of vehicle we have. We found out how many movement points it has. We found out where the main armament's located. We found out what kind of traverse for the turret we have. Now we're going to talk about what kind of armor the vehicle actually has. How well armored is this vehicle? Well, when we're talking about armor factors, we're talking about Rule 1.6. Every armored fighting vehicle is rated as the quality of its armor protection, both for its front and its side and rear target aspects, as well as both its turret and its turret aspects by the two numbers vertically aligned beneath its movement point numbers. Armor is given a rating called armor factor, and there are 11 different armor factors in the game. So these numbers that are inside circles or squares, or possibly by themselves along the right hand side, that represents how much armor they have. There are 11 different armor factors in the game: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 11, 14, 18, and 26. Notice 0, even though it shows a value of 0, 0 actually is an armor value. So if a vehicle has 0, it is still considered armored. Unless partially armored, which we talked about earlier, each armored fighting vehicle actually has 4 armor factors. The 4 armor factors are going to be for its front aspect, its flank and rear aspect, for both its hull and its turret. The front armor is the number printed on the top, and it represents the armor that that vehicle has for its front aspect. And the number on the bottom represents its side and rear armor. So the number on the top is its armor value for its front, and the number on the bottom represents its side or rear armor factors. The number that is actually listed there is for its hull value, unless of course it has a box or a circle around it. If it has a box around it, that represents superior turret. Superior turret means that whatever the value is for that armor, it will be increased to the next armor value for its turret. So in this case, if we look at our example here, this is the German Stug Panzer IV. It has a hull armor value for its front of 11, but its upper structure, in this case, is a box, which represents that the upper structure is slightly tougher, more armored. So the 11 value is actually going to go up to the next value when you talk about the upper structure. So we can look at our chart here. 11 goes up to 14. So in this case, if you were to attack this vehicle from the front and hit its hull, its armor is 11. If you attack this vehicle from the front and hit its upper structure, because of the box, it's increased by 1. It's going to be a 14. And of course, if it's represented by a circle, which is this counter here, that means the turret or upper structure is inferior or less armor. So in this case, if you were to attack this target from the front, it has a 6 for its hull, but since it's in a circle, if you attack this target from the front, it's going to have 1 less armor value. 6 here gets dropped down to a 4. So the upper structure or turret on this vehicle, if you hit it from the front, is a 4. If you were to attack this vehicle here from the side, this direction here, if you were to attack it from the side, its hull value is a 4. If you attack this vehicle from the side and hit its turret, it's got a circle, so it's going to be 1 less. So in this case, it's going to be a 3. When we're talking about attacking vehicles, sometimes it's very important to know whether you hit the hull or you hit the upper structure or turret. In this case, there's rule C 3.9. So this will be section C 3.9, location of vehicular hits. Basically, what this represents is if the colored die is rolled less than the white dice, then you've hit the turret. If the colored dice is equal to or greater than the white dice, then you've hit the hull. So in our if we had an example here, I will just roll 2 dice. Remember, the first dice here is the colored dice. Our colored dice is a 2. Our white dice is a 6. In this case, our colored dice is less than our white dice. In that case, we have hit the turret. And one of the last things we're going to talk about when we're talking about vehicles is that each vehicle has a size as well. Basically, there are 5 possible sizes: very large, large, average, small, and very small. This is represented by either white or red instead of black. Very large targets have both of their numbers in red. If both of their numbers are written in red, that means you have a -2 to hit them because they're extremely large. The next category would be large. In this case, one of the 2 are red. If one of the 2 are red, it's a large class vehicle and you get a -1 to hit it because it's large. If both of the numbers are in the normal black mode, it's average, which means you have no bonus and no penalty to hit it. Next classification is small. If you have a small vehicle, one of the numbers will be encased with a white circle. If it's a white circle, that means it's small. You get a +1 to hit it because it's harder to hit and it's smaller. And last but not least, if both of the numbers have either white circles or white stars, that means it's a very small vehicle, very hard to hit. You get a +2 to hit it. So quickly and easily you can look: 2 red, easy to hit, +2. 1 red, a little bit easier to hit because it's a little bit bigger, +1. Nothing, no bonus, no penalty. 1 white circle, small, hard to hit, +1. And of course, really small, +2. And finally, some of the last things we'll talk about on the counters are the numbers in the bottom right hand corner. These are your machine guns that are associated with your vehicle. The first number is your bow machine gun. Your second number is your coaxial machine gun. And if it has a third number on it, that is your AAMG. If it doesn't have a third number on it and it just has 2 numbers, such as this vehicle, there is no AAMG. If this vehicle here has 3 numbers, so it does have an AAMG. As far as the rules go for your bow machine gun, basically the rule is whichever direction your vehicle is facing, your bow machine gun can only fire that way. It has a range of 8 hexes. Your coaxial machine gun. Coaxial machine guns are the machine guns that are associated with your turret, so they only fire in the direction that your turret is facing. Or in this case, when we're talking about facing for your turret, we're talking about TCA, which is your turret covering arc, as opposed to your VCA, which is your vehicle covering arc. More acronyms for you to learn. But the basic gist of coaxial machine guns, whichever direction your turret is facing, that is the direction you can fire your coaxial machine gun. It has a range of 12 hexes. And some special rules about your AAMG, which is your anti-aircraft machine gun. Your AAMG may be used within or outside of your vehicle's current TCA or VCA with no penalty. But the important rule to remember for this is that a button-up armored fighting vehicle cannot use its AAMG. So if your vehicle is buttoned up, you cannot use your AAMG. You must be crew exposed. Your crew must be able to shoot and fire it. When we're talking about covering arcs, I have some representation here of a vehicle. In this case, it's a German tank. All vehicles will point to a hex side. As you can see here, this vehicle, we're going to go ahead and rotate it. It will always point towards the intersection of your two hex sides. When it's pointing, you will see that it has two hexes in front of it. That is its vehicle covering arc. These orange boxes represent the different hexes that you would be able to shoot into with your main armament when the vehicle is pointing this direction, and also with your bow machine gun. And I've positioned our turret here kind of offshoot to show you that your turrets do not necessarily have to align to the front of your vehicle. They can be pointed in possibly many different directions. If it's pointed in a different direction, your turret would then have a different covering arc and a different set of hexes that it could attack. In this case, your coaxial machine gun would be able to fire through your blue hexes and anything in between it. And in this case, your bow machine gun would fire anywhere in the orange hexes or anywhere in between them. So hopefully now that we spent a few minutes going over the different colors and the different numbers and the different symbols, you can quickly and easily look at these different vehicles that are on the map and see some of the things that stand out. This vehicle here, we can instantly see it's a red number. We remember the red number, it's prone to vehicle breakdown. It's going to have to make some kind of check. This vehicle over here, we can quickly look at it and go, it's got a circle on its front aspect, which means its turret, if hit from the front, is lower than the 4, so it's going to go down to a 3. This vehicle here, interesting enough, if you shot it from the front, it's going to have a hull value of 8, and its turret, if you hit it, since it's circle, is going to be lower. If you hit this vehicle from the side or the back, hit it from the side or the back, it has a hull value of 3, but its turret value is actually 1 better. So in this case, the front turret is worse than the 8, so to go down to the next classification. But if you shot this one from the rear or the flank, its upper structure or turret in this case is actually going to be 1 armor higher. We can see over here this vehicle right here. It's got 15 in red, which means it's prone for mechanical breakdowns. It also has a circle, which means its turret on the front is going to be 1 armor class lower than the 18. And it's also in red. It has 1 number in red, which means it's a large vehicle. I'm going to get a -1 to hit this vehicle because it's large. And you can start to see that using these things as cues, you can start to analyze the different vehicles quickly and easily. Here in the bottom left-hand corner, again, it's the main armament. The number above it, if there is a number in the box, is going to represent the same thing as the machine guns. Okay, that is your rate of fire, which means if I'm using the main armament of this vehicle and I roll a 1 on the colored dice, this vehicle has retained its rate of fire. What else have we not covered that I'm thinking about? So quickly again, just as an overview, symbol up in the top right hand corner represents what type of vehicle it is. If it's an oval, it means it's a fully tracked vehicle. The numbers in the top right hand corner represents its movement points. The numbers along the right hand side, the top number represents its front armor factor for its hull. If it's encased in a circle, that means its upper aspect or turret will be lower. If it's encased in a square, that means its upper aspect or turret will be the next armor higher. The number on the bottom represents its side and rear armor aspect, armor value. And if it's encased in a square, that means its upper value will be one higher. And if it's encased in a circle, it means it'll be one armor value lower for the upper turret, upper structure or turret. The numbers in the bottom right hand corner are your machine guns. First number is your battle machine gun. Second number is your coaxial machine gun. If there's a third number, that's going to be your anti-air machine gun. The number in the bottom left-hand corner represents the attack value for your main armament. If there is a boxed number above that, that is your rate of fire. The circle or square on the counter represents whether that is a slow traverse or fast traverse or restricted traverse turret. If it has boxes, if it does not have a circle or square, that means it does not have a upper turret, which cannot rotate off its main front facing. And each vehicle is also going to have its own information about it, special information related just to that kind of vehicle, which you'll have to look at the back of your counters to see. Unfortunately, in Vassal, that information is not on the back of these counters and is represented in a little text box. So at this time I'm not going to cover any of that information. Be sure to read section D over and look up your different vehicle information so you can find out everything there is to know about that vehicle before starting a scenario. Well, I hope I covered the basics of the number. Again, this is just a broad overview of many different aspects of the different vehicles, what those numbers, colors, and symbols represent. I'm sure there's many other things that I didn't get to mention in this vehicle. For example, what this 6 in parentheses means, what the L or the star means. But as a basic overview, just keep in mind the things we talked about, the main armament, the different machine guns, the different values, the different symbols, circles and squares, and the different colors, red or white. Hopefully that'll help you understand the counters a little bit quickly and easier so that you can play Advanced Squad Leader that much better. Hope you enjoyed this video. This is ID Jester signing off.